arrested for saving her own life. On the night of March 8, 2019, a quiet Texas suburb became the stage for one of the most controversial trials in recent memory. At the center of it all was Angela Ruiz, a mother of two, a survivor of abuse, and a woman who thought she was doing the only thing she could to protect her life. But instead of being hailed as a survivor, she was branded a criminal. Tonight, we uncover the case that challenges everything we thought we knew about justice, self-defense, and the right to survive. Angela's story begins years before that night. She met her husband in her early 20s. By all appearances, it was a promising love story, a young couple, full of hope, building a life together. But behind closed doors, their marriage turned into a cycle of fear and violence. Neighbors later testified that they often heard shouting, glass breaking, and even Angela's cries for help. Police were called to the Ruiz residence multiple times. Reports were filed. Yet each time, Angela found herself back in the same position, alone, unheard, and unprotected. 11 times, she reached out to the system. 11 reports of domestic abuse. 11 opportunities for intervention. And 11 failures to protect her. By 2018, Angela had separated from her husband. She was living alone with her children, trying to rebuild her life. But the separation didn't mean freedom. Her husband continued to stalk her, to threaten her, to show up unannounced at her home. Angela told friends she felt like a prisoner in her own house. She slept with the lights on. She kept her phone in her hand at night, ready to call for help. And then, on that March evening in 2019, her worst fears came true. Around 11 p.m., Angela heard the sound of glass breaking. Her estranged husband had forced his way through the back door, carrying a crowbar. Angela grabbed a handgun she had legally purchased after years of abuse. She fired one single shot that ended the threat. Her children, terrified, huddled in their rooms. Angela immediately called 911, believing that for once, the nightmare was finally over. But what came next shocked her and the entire nation. Instead of being treated as a victim who fought for her life, Angela was arrested on charges of second-degree murder. Prosecutors claimed she had other options. They argued she could have escaped through the front door, that she didn't have to pull the trigger, that she acted not out of fear, but out of anger. Angela sat in a courtroom, forced to relive every moment of her abuse, while prosecutors painted her as a vengeful woman with a gun. The jury believed them. Angela Ruiz was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Her children were taken from her and placed into foster care. The man who had tormented her for years was given a new identity in court. Not an abuser, not a threat, but a troubled husband. And Angela, a survivor, was turned into the villain of her own story. The outrage spread quickly. Women's rights groups, domestic violence advocates, and self-defense experts rallied behind Angela. They asked the same question. If a woman can't defend herself in her own home, then who can? Petitions were signed. Protests were held. And slowly, cracks began to form in the state's case against her. After serving 18 months of her sentence, Angela won her appeal. The conviction was overturned. She was finally free. But freedom didn't erase the scars. Angela walked out of prison into a world that saw her differently. A mother who lost years with her children. A survivor who had to carry the label of criminal. Angela's story is not an isolated one. Across the country, there are dozens of cases where self-defense has been questioned, where survivors are punished for surviving. Her case forces us to confront painful questions. What does justice look like for victims of abuse? Why does the system ignore warning signs until it's too late? And when the law says you can protect yourself, but then punishes you for doing so, who is the law really protecting? This case will stay with you, not just because of Angela Ruiz, but because it could happen to anyone, to a sister, to a daughter, to a friend. And unless stories like hers are told, the cycle of silence and injustice will continue. If you believe these stories deserve to be heard, if you believe justice should never be optional, then join us here at Emperor-worldfacts. Subscribe so you never miss the truth they try to bury, because the next story we uncover might be the one they don't want you to know.